It's my joy to introduce our Reverend Joanne, and she is going to speak on enlightenment. Reverend Joanne.
Thank you, Reverend
I get a big hug on
Oh, I love that necklace. Beautiful. It's got a lot of energy. Just like you. Holy cow. So much love in this room. I just feel so humbled. And so I have to start with good morning, enlightened beings. Oh, hang on. Good morning, beautiful. Enlightened beings. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here in spirit, in body, in mind. And now I invite you to join me as I speak these words of affirmation, knowing as we are all one, this is for the collective consciousness. Take a deep breath and just release any thoughts of yesterday or tomorrow. In the vastness of divine spirit, I recognize a pulsating essence that flows through all creation. A cosmic dance of light and love, for each breath becomes a prayer. And every heart is a vessel of the divine. I stand united with the God that weaves us together in the sacred web of life. As I inhale, I feel the power of the universe. And as I exhale, I share its peace with my enlightened community. I realize the calling that whispers in my soul to be a beacon, to be a vessel of powerful light, to enlighten, to uplift, to heal, to speak words of strength, hope, and transformation that echo beyond fear. I embrace enlightenment with gratitude, thankful for the fulfillment of this, for each voice that rises, each heart that opens. The energy of spirit flows through me, a powerful current of healing and grace. And so I release this intention to the law, knowing it is unfolding. Breathing deeply, knowing that my voice, like a river, flows to the land and brings the dawn of a new day. I let this go and flow, and it is done, returned and multiplied. And together we say, and so it is. In this quiet time of reflection and enlightenment, let us bring to mind those we wish to pray for today. Today, I pray for my sisters, my family, for Janet, for Jake, for Richard, for Jody, for Kelly, for PJ, for Penny and Laurie's mom Joyce, and all those who need to know they are loved because we are one. Thank you. I know they heard our prayers. And now I mentioned Penny's mom, and I'd like Penny to come up, and she'd just like to tell you a few words about Precious Joyce that we haven't seen since her Christmas concert.
Hi. I don't know, some of you might know that George and I were in the Philippines and we were going to spend the winter there. We got a month in and I got a phone call that my mom was not well and we needed to come home. So we came home and she had had a bout of cancer 7 years ago, and it's come back with a vengeance, and she doesn't have long to live, but she's had an opportunity to tell us what she wants. We've had good quality time to visit with her. It's been a really special time that I wouldn't have changed for anything. She's in palliative care right now at Red Deer Hospital, and I would just really appreciate all your prayers for our family and for my mom, just so that we're sensitive to what she wants and that we're able to just be there for her and love her, and that she would know that she is so important and special to us. And I just wanted to share that with you so that people are not saying, "What are you doing back?" You know? That's why I'm back. Thank you.
Oh, we send her all our love. You know, it's at times when things are not so grand that it's so important to have a spiritual community. Okay, enlightenment. Well, last week we had a new person come to church. And then when we went home, I said, "So what did you think? How did you feel?" And the word that he said really just took me back. He said, "I felt enlightened. I felt enlightenment." And I thought, that is such a deep, powerful word. And that is always my intention, that when people leave, they feel lighter, they feel better. So it solidified my theme for 2025, enlightenment. That's going to be what I choose. And I know that today, as I tell you what I learned about enlightenment, I hope you're half as excited and pumped as me, because it's got a history, and it's got a time where it was trampled down into the ground, and now it's time to practice enlightenment again. The age of enlightenment was an intellectual and a philosophical movement that took place in the 17th century. Doesn't that sound like something that's happening today? At that time, it was revolutionary. The people began to think for themselves. They became illuminated intellectually, philosophically. And maybe that was hundreds of years ago, but I think when we look back 100 years from now, they're going to say this was the age of enlightenment. I think what we call New Age or New Thought really is hundreds and hundreds of years old. It stems from the age of enlightenment. So I like to look through books and I ask questions for people. What do you think about enlightenment? Ernest Holmes talks a lot about enlightenment. He says it's recognizing the divinity in each other, which really, I had just put that word down, and then my granddaughter Constance and her partner Marinick came for breakfast, and he's a real deep thinker, and so I said to him, "What do you think about enlightenment, Marinick?" He says, "Well, Joanne, it depends. What kind of enlightenment are you talking about?" I just think about this nirvana. He says, because there's two kinds of enlightenment. There's self-actualization enlightenment, and there's community enlightenment. Now, he works on the streets in Edmonton with Indigenous youth, so I could really see where he was coming from. Community enlightenment. I think as a community, if we practice community enlightenment, we're going to change the world. Another place where Ernest Holmes talked about enlightenment really talked about community enlightenment that I didn't really know until Marinick pointed it out to me, and he said, Ernest Holmes says, "Our time should be devoted to knowing the truth. This sets humanity free from the problems of ignorance. That truth, which alone can bring enlightenment to the world, is that war should cease, that people should live together in harmony, because they have recognized the divinity in each other." That's not what I thought about when I thought about enlightenment, until this week at least. I asked for input from lots of people. And, I have this new editor now. And so I asked my editor about enlightenment. And for, like me, I think it went back to Buddhism. That's where we think about the enlightened beings and the Buddha. And then as we were reading what he found about Buddhism, it says the Buddhists want a deeper understanding of nature, and as a Buddha, you see reality as it is. Wow, that's enlightenment, to see reality as it is. And so when I read that, I thought, that doesn't sound so unattainable. I think about nirvana and, you never screw up. And I thought, I can do that. I can see reality as it is. And I know reality right now is pretty tough. Even for me, I'm seeing new beginnings and new endings. Reality's tough right now for Penny. But if we just stay in that reality, like she said, I just have to stay present. I have to walk through this. Because Buddha goes on to say, the nature of reality is to live in the present moment. That's it, my editor says, to live in the present moment. Mindfulness, haven't said that more than 1,000 times this year already. Mindfulness. So that's another pearl on that golden thread that connects all faiths, all religions, in one harmonious new thought. Enlightenment, being in the present moment. I really just got to stop for a minute and acknowledge how lovely it is to see Brenda and Penny and Destin and Cole and all of you that come every week, and Janice home from her holiday. And I love all of you, but I just got to point that out. And of course you, Peter. Thank you for coming. So the word enlightenment, that was the very first thing I do. I look up, what does enlightenment mean? And it means into the light, which has absolutely nothing to do with my talk. But I thought it was good for the soul to know enlightenment means into the light. And it's just for information for you, for your soul. And can you see the light in yourself and in others? The master teacher, Jesus, he was very enlightened. He enlightened the masses. But how do you think he did community enlightenment? He didn't do it on his own. He did it for himself first. He walked a long, long path before he had the wisdom and knowledge to share with people. He was the first one that practiced self-actualization and then took it out and did community enlightenment. So I invite you to do that from now on. Every day, find something that you can learn. Find something that you can share. Because I believe that knowledge without sharing is just information. But once you have knowledge and you share it, it becomes wisdom. I talked before about enlightenment being a turning point in the intellectual history of the West, because it was the age of reason. That drew me to Ernest Holmes' teaching, because it was the first time I was ever told I could think for myself. Nobody told you that yet today. You can think for yourself, and you do a great job of it. So that started back in 1865. It was an intellectual and philosophical movement. I think we're adding spirituality to that. But then what happened? After people started to become enlightened, there was an increased awareness in us of the relationship between the mind and the everyday world. Well, they were having none of it. So they had to tramp that down. Religious leaders and rulers, they started to lean towards, if it's not scientifically proven, it's probably not true. And they leaned the other way to dogma. And pretty soon the government had their hands in it. And Christian education became a little slanted. And they changed that name from the early modern era, which was truly the Enlightenment era. Until the 2000s, it was called the Age of Enlightenment. Who changed it to the Age of the Modern Era? You might think, what are those ages of man? Well, I had to look it up myself because it started with the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Classical Age, the Medieval Age, the early modern era age, and where we are now in the modern age. And as I was looking farther and farther, I was just shocked to see that years ago that was called the Age of Enlightenment. Oh, no, they just don't want that. Let's not have enlightened beings. Because they were so focused on, and still are, it's about science, economics, religion. But we know a new way. Ernest Holmes found a new way. Imagine how enlightened he was. 100 years ago to write that book, The Science of Mind, he must have been, in California, it must have been something else. I would love to know, even in the, 20, 30 years ago when Reverend Valentine and Tress started this, I'm sure it was still pretty out there. Talk about it under the covers. Don't bring it out in the public. So New Age and New Thought, they should be rephrased to enlightenment. Those who we are and where we are going, we are on an age of enlightenment. And one more thing that they buried down when they changed it was they buried down our consciousness, our inner strength, our power, our thoughts of mind. And let's blow the roof off the world by living in a state of enlightenment. One of the quotes I read talked about enlightenment being understanding the natural world through observation and implementation. Wow, doesn't that sound like science of mind, spiritual mind treatment? I talk a lot about affirmative prayer, and here, like 700 years ago, they're talking about how to use the knowledge and understanding of nature to change our life. Ernest Holmes says, change your thinking, change your life. Thoughts are the seeds. Your mind's the soil. Be careful what you plant in the soil, because that's what you manifest. I need to talk more about affirmative prayer. That's been my mission. I always said when I got my ministry, I was going to teach people how to pray. Because people pray like they're calling 911. It's too late. Help! If you need to know what to do with your life, you should phone for information. I think that's called 411. Hello, could you please help guide me or open within me, which is another thing. There's nothing out there. It's all already within. But you ask, please bring into my consciousness what I need to know. And those are the 5 steps. God is a power greater than I am, and I can use it. And then I know that everything I say after that is already heard in the mind and it's delivered. And then I'm always grateful. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. I love looking at you, Dustin. You're so smiley. Gratitude, gratitude. And then faith, where you let it go. I let it go, and I know it's so. When I get into that place of prayer, it just slows me down. So we talked about enlightenment. We covered the when. We know it was before the Roman era. We covered the why. To attain a spiritual path and a journey to understand the relationship between reason, religion, spirituality, the earth. But how can we do that? Oh, it's so easy, but it's not simple. Because it requires being in the moment. That's the first thing. Last week I talked about stop. Maybe that's what we need to do. Stop. Take a breath. Observe what's going on in your life and proceed. That's the first thing. Just know who you are. And the second thing is deciding on what kind of day am I having? Am I having a great day? Am I having a crappy day? Because whatever you decide, I can guarantee you the universe is going out to bring you more of it. So decide when you want to be enlightened. What kind of day am I having right now? That's where you change it. Not, I'm going to be okay in 2 hours. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up better. Next Wednesday, I'll be a better girl. Oh, you have to do it now. And the third thing is what they talk about. Community enlightenment is knowing that you're not alone. We're all in this together. Everybody has good days. Everybody has bad days. Just decide how you want your day to go. And if you see somebody look like they're having a bad day, give them a smile. We talk about that to the children, eh? If you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours. So if you just close for your eyes for a moment, I have a couple of thoughts. And these are from Roger Gabriel. Take a deep breath and exhale slowly with intention and relaxation. And affirm for yourself these truths. Joyful, energetic body. Loving, compassionate heart. Clear, reflective, alert mind. Lightness of being. That brings your body into alignment with enlightenment. But I wouldn't be me if I didn't tell you a story. I heard this story about enlightenment a while back, and when you start writing, things come back to you. So this was a story about a fellow who went to his master teacher. I don't know if it was Buddha or it could have been Jesus, but it's a story about a boy who goes to his teacher and he says to his teacher, "How can I achieve enlightenment?" And the teacher smiled at him and he said, "Oh, I got to show you something. It's really special. I've never showed anybody before." So he takes the boy into his basement, and he's got 3 boxes on a shelf. And he says, "If you don't mind, take those 3 boxes down, put them on the table. That's enlightenment." So he takes them down, wondering what his teacher is kind of crazy. So he opens the first box, and in it there's a black string, and he thinks this guy's nuts. And his teacher says to him, "Oh, that's a candle wick." He says, "Oh, I just remember how it felt the first time I saw the light of a candle, how it flickered in my soul, how it danced in the wind. And I thought, that's enlightenment. So I took my scissors and I cut that wick off and put it in the box." That was enlightenment that day. And then he takes down looks at the second box. It's really heavy and it's black and full of cobwebs. And so the teacher says, "Open that box." So he opened the box, and in it, it's full of water, stinky water. And the teacher says, "That was enlightenment for me that day." I mean, he was thinking, this guy's crazy. It just looks like a health hazard. And he says, "There was a day I was going for a walk, and I walked under this beautiful waterfall. I could see the sun shining through, and it was sparkling diamonds. And I tasted it, and it tasted like fresh air. And I knew that was enlightenment for me. So I took that waterfall, I took that water and put it in a box to remind myself." So the boy says, "I was getting more and more perplexed. So I saw this last little box, and the teacher says, 'And open this one.' So he opens the last little box. It's completely empty. And he says to his teacher, 'There's nothing in here.' 'Oh, yes,' the teacher said with a big smile on his face. 'Every time I open it, I can see it. Can't you see it? It's sunshine.' There was this one morning, the sun was shining on the dew on the grass, and it was just lighting up the light in my life and in my eyes, and everybody I looked at was aglow. I took that sunshine, I put it in the box and put it up on the shelf." So the boy thought that for a while, and the teacher said to him, "The thing about enlightenment is you can't hold it for a moment." He says, "The next time you arrive at a moment of enlightenment, just let yourself feel it. Experience it. Be in harmony with the sensation and allow it to flow through you. If you embrace it and share it quietly with those around you, it becomes a form of grace and love." So they hugged, and the young boy walked out of the house, and he turned and said to him, You didn't even have enlightenment in there. All you had in one box, you had a string, another one you had water, and the other one was empty. And he said, I thought my teacher would get mad that I kind of mocked him, but no, he just smiled bigger. And he looked at me and he said, let those moments be. Don't try to put them in a box. Don't lock them in with words or close them off with concepts. Just let them be. And if you let them be, they'll melt into you and express themselves in love and kindness. But as soon as you try to encapsulate them with a sentence, you extinguish the flame, and you'll be left with a wick with empty words. And when I left, the boy said, the man closed the gate, and I thanked him, because those 3 boxes of enlightenment had opened up a box in my heart that I didn't even know was closed. So I ask you to let that resonate with you. Enlightenment isn't a thing you do, it's what you are. It's an experience that can't be replicated, can only be respected and honored. And I want you to appreciate those moments of learning that we call enlightenment. Everything we know, we can share, and every time we do, it becomes wisdom. So carry it out into the world and enlighten your community, enlighten your heart. That's where peace and love live. And thank you for your gift of light to me today. I am Reverend Joanne Faith, peace and love, Boruck. And I love you all.